Hey dudes, Hardcore Kid here. Hardcore enough to review kid stuff. In the world of cinema, there come times when filmmakers that focus on a certain genre decide to try out something different. Take for example Robert Rodriguez, who not only directed adult-oriented action thrillers like Planet Terror and Sin City, but Spy Kids and Shark Boy and Lava Girl as well. Which leads us to today's Touché de Spielberg, Luc Besson. This guy is known for his fast-paced, high-octane production techniques in such films as The Transporter and Taxi, as well as directing quite a few other movies, his biggest one being The Fifth Element. Some critics usually consider Besson the most Hollywood of French filmmakers with his over-the-top and often vulgar style, but hey, as long as it's entertaining, that's what counts. But what happens when Besson takes a shot at the world of animation? Well, dudes and dudettes, let me introduce you to Arthur and the Invisibles, or Arthur and the Minimoys, depending on where you live. They're all based off of a series of books that Besson had written in the early 2000s during his short retirement. These books would later evolve into a trilogy of part live-action, part computer-generated films. Arthur and the Invisibles in 2006, Arthur and the Revenge of Malthazar in 2009, and Arthur and the War of the Two Worlds in 2010. With a budget of $86 million, Arthur and the Invisibles is one of the most expensive French films ever made. It's also one of the biggest cinematic flops ever made. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are people watching out there who have never even heard of this movie until now. Trust me, after watching this, you'll be wishing that it never crossed your mind. Well, enough talk. Let's start this trilogy of terror with Arthur and the Invisibles. Cue the theme music!
My name is Archibald Susho. I'm an engineer and I spent more than 10 years in Africa building every type of useful thing. By the way, it's in the heart of Africa that our story begins. Well, this is not Africa, this is Connecticut, and this is the house I lived in before I mysteriously disappeared. But that's another story that my grandson would be more qualified to tell you.
No, I understand. Connecticut is in the heart of Africa. Africa is a country, not a continent. It all makes sense. So this bright young chap here is our protagonist, Arthur, played by Freddie Highmore. Freddie shall rule the... I'm not even gonna bother. Yeah, I've never been a big fan of Freddie Highmore. He always comes across as too innocent and annoying in almost every movie I've seen him in. Heck, I didn't even like him as Charlie in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I know his character is meant to be portrayed as shy and harmless, but you know what? Sorry, dude. You may have the heart, but Peter Ostrom could still own your ass any day. So Arthur lives in this bright yellow house in Connecticut. He's with his grandma, played by Mia Farrow. His grandfather Archibald had recently gone missing, and his parents, well, they're too busy looking for a job to give too much of a crap about him.
We're still in the city, Arthur.
Oh, well, I guess you'll see it tomorrow morning.
No, we're not going to be able to make it, Arthur. But even though we can't be there, we wanted to tell you that we're thinking of you because today is your birthday. Happy birthday, son!
How did you like the present?
God, yeah, you...
What?
Oh, I fixed it with Granny.
Remember, you have yourself a happy birthday!
By the way, you're adopted! So after a scintillating birthday celebration, Arthur's grandmother reads him a story about two tribes, the Bogo Matsalai, who are incredibly tall, and the Minimoys, who are incredibly small.
Who's this? This is the Princess Selenia, daughter of the king of the Minimoys. She's beautiful.
Oh yeah, I'd do her too.
And the king himself gave your grandfather the secret of how to find him anytime he wanted. That's what your grandfather said. Every time he was a little drunk.
I'm sure the writers were hitting the bottle a lot when they were coming up with this Oscar-winning script. Which leads us to the introduction of one of our antagonists, property developer Ernest DeVito, who plans to evict Arthur and his grandmother and turn their land into an apartment complex.
And if your husband does not sign this paper within the next 48 hours, I will be under the obligation to evict you from this property, whether your laundry's dry or not. No!
Gah! Little wet boy, don't kill me! With only 2 days to pay off all the tax collectors, Arthur comes up with this brilliant plan of locating and profiting off the rubies that his grandfather hid somewhere in the yard. He searches for clues and eventually finds a message from his grandfather. The next scene shows Arthur sneaking around his house trying to get a key, only for his grandmother to confiscate it from him. He tries to get it back, only to knock some sleeping medicine into her water. Funny how she doesn't even notice the bottle dripping into her glass, and she just knocks herself out, just like that. Yeah, I don't think sleep medicine works that quickly. So Arthur gets the key, and more random stuff ensues. Jesus, everything just feels so rushed here. Then again, since the movie is already 20 minutes in, it seems the filmmakers at this point were trying to throw in as many hijinks as they could before moving on to the animation. And it isn't entertaining, it's just convoluted. So Arthur gets his grandfather's telescope, but before he can go outside, he's confronted by the Bogomatisali? Where the hell did these guys come from? I didn't know tribes like this still lived in Connecticut. Well, the reason that these bastards have come is because the Minimoys have been living in Arthur's yard, and they need Arthur to save them from the evil warlord Malthazar, or the Evil M as they call him.
Time to go.
You're not coming.
Only one can pass through. And you seem to us to be the best choice to combat Evil M.
Malthazar.
Never speak that name. It brings bad luck.
Bad luck? What is he, like the Lord Voldemort of the Minimoys? Say his name and then his Death Eaters come and capture you?
Your grandfather went off to defeat him. And now it's up to you to continue his fight.
I think it might be better if I leave my place to one of you. I mean, you're so much bigger and stronger than me.
Your heart is the strongest of weapons.
Since when has heart been the strongest weapon? If that's so, then I guess that makes Mati from Captain Planet the strongest of the Planeteers. So the telescope is aimed directly at the full moon, which allows Arthur to look into the telescope and see one of the Minimoys, Prince Betamesh, or Beta, voiced by Jimmy Fallon.
Pleased to meet you. Better?
I hope you have a good reason for using the beam like that, because the council has strictly forbidden it.
Go on.
This is a matter of extreme urgency. In just 2 days' time, the garden will be destroyed.
What are you talking about, young man? Are you a practical joker like your grandfather?
This is no joke, Mr. Betamesh. They will cover up all the gardens and stop the flowers from growing.
But that's awful.
The only way to prevent this is for me to find the treasure that my grandfather has hidden somewhere. Then I'll be able to pay off the contractor. To do that, I need to pass into your world, so I can start looking for the treasure.
That's not possible. You can't make a journey just like that. The council must first be assembled, then you must explain.
I am so going to hate this character, aren't I? So Arthur is somehow shrunken down and sucked into the telescope. He uses the key to unlock the entrance and... No! I don't want to be a Honey Nut Cheerio! So Arthur falls into the Minimoy world where he becomes one of the Minimoys. So now that we're in the animated part of the movie, let me talk about the animation for a bit. First of all, the sets and backgrounds are extremely detailed, and they look quite stunning and very beautiful. The character designs are another story. The Minimoys all look like ugly troll dolls, and they move around in a very robotic fashion. Then there's the voice acting. Aside from Fallon as Betamesh, we have Miro, voiced by Harvey Keitel, the Princess Selenia, voiced by Madonna, and Emperor Sifrat, voiced by Bobby D. Robert De Niro. Seems like a decent choice of voice actors, if it wasn't for one little problem.
You did that on purpose, didn't you? Could you have waited 10 seconds before playing the clown?
I'm on a mission of great importance.
Because my mission isn't of great importance, is that it?
You're far too arrogant to be able to feed the sword. You know you are.
The characters like to talk really, really fast so they can get as many lines of dialogue out as possible while hoping that we actually understand what they're saying in every scene. Woo! Say what you will about the live-action bits. Sure, it was rushed and rather conspicuous, but it wasn't as muddled as this. Could have been worse. At least it's not as choppy as the edited version. Yeah, did I forget to mention, the copy of the movie that I have is the uncensored cut. And pretty soon, you're going to see what was actually cut for the international release. Parents, prepare to be outraged. So we see Selenia trying to release the Sword of Power, which has been embedded into the ground for many years.
See? Told you so. Way too arrogant.
While the princess gets a second wind, perhaps you should hear this, young man. We're all ears.
It's like this. In just under 2 days, some men are going to come and destroy my house, my garden, my world, and your world.
And you, all 2.5 millimeters of you, you've come to save us, is that
The
it?
only way to stop these men is to pay them off. This is why my grandfather came to you 3 years ago. He was looking for a treasure, and I've come to complete his mission.
Deep in the heart of the city of Necropolis, where he reigns supreme, the evil M. And unfortunately, no one ever returns from the Forbidden Lands.
You can check out of Necropolis anytime you'd like, but you can never leave. Just then, the kingdom is attacked by an army of mosquito-like creatures, and we get a very Besson-esque action sequence filled with tons of jump cuts and fast, frantic movements of these weird, deformed creatures flying all over the place. You know, because it's hardcore! What the fuck just happened? Then we get to see a hand-to-hand combat scene with Arthur and Selenia against the goons. Well, it looks like they're outnumbered until Arthur manages to pull the Sword of Power out of the ground, and it takes out the goons. So Arthur is the only one who can possess the sword? Hey, just like King Arthur and Excalibur. Yeah. In fact, everything in this movie keeps reminding me of something. Arthur being shrunken down and living with creatures underground? That's the ant bully. The mosquitoes, the cherry bombs, they remind me of the grasshoppers in A Bug's Life. Oh, and the sword in the stone? Do I even need to say anything? They're just stealing elements from other movies and just mashing them all together. Hey, I can tell you right now how much I suck at writing and coming up with material of my own, but I can sure as hell do a better job than these professionals.
Arthur the hero!
Long live Arthur, hero!
I would like your permission to continue my mission.
Unfortunately, I have to agree with you, my child, but I must insist on one condition.
What condition is that?
Arthur is brave, and his heart is pure. He will go with you.
That is what you wish, Father.
Well done, Arthur.
I'm sure you're going to make a fine team.
Whoa! I think my Minimoy just moved. So Arthur, Selenia, and Beta Mash are now off on an adventure through the tall grass and rough terrain of Arthur's backyard to find the treasure and save Arthur's grandfather. Sounds like an awesome adventure, right? Well, it would be if Selenia wasn't such a snobby bitch and Beta Mash wasn't an annoying brat.
Classic functions like your Pan, Magic, Sundeals, Whistler.
There's nothing in there to cut off your tongue by any chance?
No, but that's your specialty, isn't it?
Ugh, why, Madonna? You were such a bodacious babe back then. How did you sink to this? Was it for the money? Or was Luke Besson threatening to blackmail you by sending those nude photographs of you to TMZ? And Jimmy Fallon? Ugh. That dude can go burn in the pits of hell beneath Hollywood. He does not have a single ounce of acting talent in his body. He can't even do a good job voice acting. And as we all know, voice acting is the easiest job in the world. Fuck you, Chris Rock. The trio decide to hitch a ride inside a walnut shell, which then gets launched into the air, only to get knocked out by a bumblebee. Shit. Of all the aerial obstacles they could have hit, like birds, airplanes, or Cesadors, the one thing to knock them out was a tiny friggin' bumblebee?
Bees, my god.
The shell then gets split in half, and Beta and Selenia are swept downstream. It's Arthur to the rescue!
I know this river. First, there's a bend to the right, then there's a sharp bend to the left. So, to catch up with them, all I have to do is run straight across as the crow flies. Sorry, as the crow flies, as the crow flies. You see? I didn't abandon you.
Oh, great. So instead of the two of us drowning, now all three of us can drown together.
No one's gonna drown, Selenia. Surely you're not gonna let little river frighten you, are you?
It's not the river that I'm frightened of. It's that.
So with death fast approaching, what is Arthur's big idea to save his friends? Get this. He takes the lace on Selenia's corset, ties it to the sword, and stabs a branch with it, allowing them to climb to safety. All the while, Selenia is clutching her breasts so she doesn't get a wardrobe malfunction. Hey, a kid's movie that's hardcore enough to get crap past the radar. Underage nudity for the fail. Gotta say though, that string must be pretty strong, being able to hold over 300 grams of beta mesh. Must be one of Victoria's Secret's heavy-duty wonder bras.
Arthur, you were fantastic.
Right, maybe Mr. Fantastic can return my lace now.
So afterwards, Selenia decides to set up camp inside a giant flower. So she takes Beta's little pocket knife thing and uses a rope to make shelter. But now wait a minute, in that last scene...
Beta, any chance there's a rope on that 300 function pocket knife of yours?
No, that's only on the smaller model.
Bull fucking shit, Beta. You had that rope in your knife the entire time. Why couldn't you use that instead of Selenia's string? Because boobs, that's why. What's really funny is that in the edited version, Beta actually does use the rope from his knife to save them from the waterfall. This actually has to be one of the very few times I've seen an edit actually cover up a plot hole. Although for some strange reason they don't edit out the part where Selenia is groping herself as they're climbing the rope. I guess she was turned on by the white brush Arthur has on his head. Oh, Arthur, that hair is making me so horny right now. Oh.
What about you? Are you really going to be 1,000 years old in 2 days?
Yes. And in 2 days' time I'm to succeed my father, and watch over the Minimoy people until it shall come to pass that my own children reach the age of 1,000 and succeed me. Such is the tradition.
But to have children, you need a husband.
I know, but I'm not worried. I still have 2 whole days to find one. And now, good night, Arthur.
Good night, princess.
Dude, you're 10 years old. She's 1,000. Wait a few years. The next day, they come across the water irrigation system that Arthur was building at the start of the film. They also see some of the sides chopping up the straws. They sneak into one of them, only to get rolled right back into the river and right towards the waterfall again.
You always have such brilliant ideas, don't you?
Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Give me back your lace.
Absolutely no way.
Use the rope, you horny bastard! Doesn't matter because they live anyway. And just when you thought this whole thing couldn't get any more insulting...
Hey, Hyo.
It does.
You got a problem? No, it's nothing. I was just checking that the accordion part ain't damaged.
We don't need that part. We only want the stems.
Oh, yeah, the stems. Sure thing.
Get a move on, the master's waiting.
Oh, yeah, the master. Sure thing. Whatever you do, don't move until I come back and get you. Got it?
No problem.
Dudes and dudettes, I give you the Kula Masai clan, led by Max, voiced by Snoop Dogg, and his assistant, voiced by Anthony Anderson.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yep, and mega discreet, like you say.
You know, the pride of Africa. What the smeg is wrong with this movie? Sexual innuendo and now Rasta stereotypes? What is this anarchy? Whoa, did that fucker just vomit Monster Energy drink into their cups?
Yeah.
Just what I need.
Yep, that hits the spot.
Oh, it's the best Jack Pie in town, baby.
And underage drinking. Awesome. So now we're in Max's nightclub, which has a record player as a dance floor. Damn, I wish all the nightclubs around here had something like that. Then again, we don't have nightclubs in West Milford.
Hey, take it easy.
If you want to find a husband in 2 days, then there's no time to lose. But I can help you out if you like.
Oh, that's sweet of you. Thanks.
I like to help out. Besides which, things are pretty tame right now. I only have 7 wives.
Wow, 7 wives. That, must take a lot out of you.
I like hard work. I can work night and day, 7 days a week, and I never get tired.
7 wives? Whoa, I bet they're all really excited to be giving handjobs to a guy who has blunts for fingers. At that moment, Malthazar's son Darko shows up in the club. He's voiced by Jason Bateman, doing his best, Sean Connery mixed with Sylvester the Cat.
Hey, Darkos, what's up?
Selenia, what a princess of your rank doing in a place like this?
I just dropped in for a dance.
Ah, well then, let's dance.
Fine, but you should take those shoulder pads off first. You don't want to poke somebody's eye out with those things. Hey, give them to me. Then out of nowhere, some of the sides show up and we have a huge fight scene erupt on the dance floor with stupid dance fighting moves, Selenia doing a lame Pulp Fiction reference, and Beta dancing to Stayin' Alive. Just out of curiosity, what year is this movie supposed to take place in? 1960. Yeah, I don't think disco music was around at that time yet, Besson. Unless the Minimoy world is 1,000 years ahead of its time, then people would probably be listening to Take On Me in the year 2985. So Arthur, Selenia, and Beta escape from the bar fight and make their way towards Malthazar's fortress. Cut back to Mia Farrow, who has spent the entire movie being worried sick about Arthur. To make matters worse, Arthur's parents unexpectedly show up.
Since I made the mistake of letting him know about our money problems, he got it into his head to find the treasure that Grandpa hid.
What treasure?
Honey, what's the use of finding the treasure if Arthur isn't here to enjoy it?
Don't worry, Granny. I'm sure Arthur will be right back. He just took a little time off, that's all.
You greedy motherfuckers! Your son has been missing for days, and all you care about is looking for treasure? Is everyone in this movie out of their minds? Oh, Mia Farrow, this has to be some kind of bad dream, right? Oh my god. This is no dream. This is really happening! So our little Minimoy heroes make it to Necropolis, and Selenia uses the rope to sneak into the city.
But
This is where our paths separate, Arthur. I have to deal with this alone.
What do you mean? I thought we were a team.
Well, the team is about to split up. You're gonna go look for your treasure, and I'm gonna take care of Em. If I succeed, we'll meet back here.
And if you fail?
If I should fail, I bequeath all my powers to you.
What do you mean?
Danger! Danger!
Be a good king.
But wait, we have to... Selenia!
Congratulations, Arthur. It was a wonderful wedding. Really, one of the loveliest weddings I've ever been to. Very moving, clear, concise, and quick.
Yeah, a little too quick.
Oh, no. You got the most important things, her hand and her heart. What more do you want?
Some wedding cake would have been good. I like cake. But Arthur and Beta end up getting captured by Darkos, while Selenia goes to confront Malthazar. And at long last, we finally come face to face with the big bad BM.
I spent entire days polishing that sword to perfection. I'd recognize that sound anywhere. And who else would have been able to draw the sword from the stone besides you? Selenia.
Hey, what do you know? It's Klaus Kinski's even uglier brother, Monty. Oh, and he's also voiced by David Bowie. Back, Labyrinth fangirls, back!
Why so much hatred?
Because you betrayed your own people, slaughtered entire populations, and bound the rest into slavery. You're nothing but a monster.
Speak not of monsters, nor of things of which you are ignorant. Back in the time when I was known as Malthazar the Good, I inspired such trust and confidence that when the drought came, one which lasted 1,000 years, I was the one they chose for the crusade, with the task of bringing back water, of course, but also all the riches I could reap. Malthazar the Conqueror. And having accomplished my mission, I returned to my village. Malthazar the Hero. Yet, it was not long before the diseases and bewitchments which I'd encountered during my voyage began to disfigure my body. Fear spread through the people. Fear of contamination. People stopped speaking to me. They crossed the street when I approached. And very soon I became Malthazar the Evil M.
Sounds like an interesting bit of exposition. That is, until you hear the real story of why he's a dick.
The version recorded in history books is slightly different. It is said that when you returned from your voyage, you celebrated for months on end, each day sinking a little further into drinking and debauchery until you began keeping company with the worst kind of insects, even poisonous ones, like a certain pretty young, weevil.
Silence!
You gave your powers to her, she gave her powers to you.
That's enough, I tell you.
Translation. The guy partied way too hard, had unprotected sex with some chick, and now he has AIDS.
I was drunk.
Well, if you can't hold your liquor, you shouldn't indulge.
Yes, I know. I let myself go a bit.
You know what's good about being straight edge? You don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't do drugs, and you're not a womanizer. Why do I bring all this up? Because Besson is apparently so obsessed with shoving as much sex, booze, and seizure-inducing images down his adult audience's throats that he thinks it's good to do it to their kids as well. Everywhere I look, I see potheads, womanizers, or some drunken idiot out on a quest to obtain more drink.
Drink!
No, D12! No drink!
Drink!
No!
Drink!
No!
Drink!
No!
Drink!
No!
Drink! 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 Drink!
So after wasting his life on one bad relationship, Malthazar wishes to have another, this time with Selenia. But since Selenia has already married Arthur, he has her sent away. Cut back to Arthur and Beta, who are locked up in a cell with this fuck-ugly Minimoy, who turns out to be Arthur's long-lost grandfather Archibald. Selenia then gets locked into the cell too.
I failed, Arthur. I'm sorry. All is lost.
No, as long as we're still alive and love each other, nothing will ever be lost.
You're so full of hope.
You can never give up hope. Look at me. Only yesterday I was just a small, lonely kid, and today, well, I'm married a princess.
A happy princess. Because she's finally found a Prince Charming.
I bet you say that to all the mini boys. So our heroes are brought to Malthazar's throne room, where we see that the throne itself is Archibald's lost ruby. Malthazar then explains that he plans to use Arthur's drinking straws to divert water into the Minimoy's villages and drown them all.
They will die in agony with my name on their lips. Look, read my lips. Malthazar.
You really are a monster.
Maybe, but I also know how to be noble. You are free. See? All you have to do is follow this tunnel and you'll be home in no time.
As soon as we're inside that tunnel, you'll flood it.
Poor Selenia. What a twisted mind you have.
Why not just kill them now? How do you know they won't actually escape through that tunnel through some random plot convenience? Oh, hi there, random plot convenience! So our heroes flaunt their way into Arthur's wind-up car and vroom through the tunnels just as the water starts following them. And I have to admit, this scene is actually pretty cool. Eventually they make it to the gates and the Minimoys are able to temporarily stop the water from flowing into the village. After receiving another kiss from Selenia, Arthur and Archibald are brought back to their normal size. So Arthur, with the help of Mino, the royal advisor's son, trust me, he was thrown at the last minute, so I really can't say much about him, Arthur is able to locate the ruby. He then drops a baseball into the pipe, killing most of the sides and blocking up the tunnel. So, Malthazar, not only did you let the good guys get away, but you also foiled your own plan of conquering the Seven Kingdoms. Ground control to Malthazar, you fucked up, you dumb retard! So Arthur gets the ruby, they're able to pay off DeVito, the Minimoy world is saved, and the movie finally ends on a sequel hook. This movie left me speechless, and not in a good way. This movie is a mess. A stupid, poorly thought out, half-baked mess. The animation falls into Uncanny Valley, the story isn't original, the characters aren't likable, and there are plot and logic holes bigger than Africa. The all-star voice acting talent is completely wasted, with Golden Globe Award-winning actors like Robert De Niro and Mia Farrow given very little to do, and mostly put in very wooden performances. There's a good reason why a majority of this film was cut in the international release. Besson drowns it with endless amounts of alcohol, sex, and racial stereotypes. Unless you're trying to be like rock and roll, you shouldn't just shove it all in there to the point where it doesn't even make sense. Even the relationship between Arthur and Selenia is too disturbing and too forced for its own good. Did Besson forget that this movie was intended for kids? Honestly, I don't know what this movie's intended audience is. Little kids wouldn't understand it, adults would be disgusted by it, and younger adults would just find it annoying. And believe me, I found this movie annoying. Hardcore headache for Arthur and the Invisibles. But alas, the nightmare is far from over. Stay tuned next time where I take on the sequel, Arthur and the Revenge of Malthazar.
You gotta